A question. Have you ever asked yourself why people's skin colors are so different from one another? One person's skin is almost white, another's is wheat-colored, another's is brown, and someone else's is very dark. Many people think this is just a superficial difference, but the reality is far stranger than that. Now, imagine we have a time machine and go back about 200,000 years. We take a newborn from the heart of Africa and take it to a very cold place like Northern Europe. Do you think if that person's descendants lived there for thousands of years, they would still have the same skin color? Or would their appearance gradually change? What's interesting is that the answer to this question has nothing to do with race, nothing to do with superiority, nothing to do with intelligence. Everything starts with something very simple: the sun. Yes, that ball of fire that sits above our heads every day has played one of the most important roles in shaping the human appearance. And today, we're going to see how sunlight over thousands of years has changed the skin color of billions of people. Everything started on one continent. Let's go back about 200,000 years. At that time, there was still no countries, no cities, not even agriculture. Humans lived in small groups, hunted, gathered fruit, and fought every day just to stay alive. And their home was only one place: Africa. Today, almost all scientists agree that modern humans, Homo sapiens, first appeared in Africa. And one interesting point: almost all of them had dark skin. Not because it happened by chance, not because it was some special racial trait, but because if their skin hadn't been dark, they most likely wouldn't have survived until today. The sun, both friend and enemy. The sun is necessary for life. Without sunlight, no plant grows, no food is produced, and life on Earth wouldn't make sense at all. But this same sun also has a dangerous side: rays called ultraviolet, or UV. These rays have so much energy that they can damage the body's cells, and if this damage is severe enough, it can even cause skin cancer. But that's not the whole story. UV rays also destroy a very important substance in the body, a substance called folate. You may not have heard of it much, but folate is extremely important for making new cells, for fetal growth, and for keeping the next generation healthy. That means if the body loses too much of its folate, the chance that children will be born healthy decreases. So, early humans had a big problem. They lived every day under the intense African sun, but they needed a way to protect their bodies. Of course, they themselves didn't do anything. It was nature that found the solution. Nature's masterpiece: melanin. Our body produces an amazing substance called melanin, the same pigment that determines the color of our skin, hair, and even eyes. But melanin's main job is not to decide what color we are. Its main job is protection. Think of it like a natural sunscreen. The more melanin there is, the better the skin can block the sun's dangerous rays. That's why people who live under intense sunlight usually have darker skin. This means dark skin is not a random gift. It is a defensive shield. A shield that nature built over millions of years to increase humans' chances of survival. In fact, the skin color of our ancestors was a kind of battle armor, an armor designed to fight the sun. But the story had a major twist, because one day some of these humans decided to leave their home. And at that moment, one of the greatest journeys in human history began, a journey that was going to permanently change the skin color of humans. So far, we've learned that dark skin was a kind of defensive shield against the intense African sun. But now an important question arises. If this shield was so good, then why don't everyone in the world still have dark skin? The answer to that question is hidden in one of the greatest migrations in human history. The greatest migration in history. About 60 to 70,000 years ago, a strange thing happened. Some groups of humans gradually left Africa. No one knows exactly why. Maybe they were looking for new hunting grounds, maybe drought forced them, or maybe pure curiosity pulled them toward unknown lands. Whatever the reason was, the result was that humans slowly entered the Middle East, then Asia, then Europe, and eventually they filled almost the entire planet. If you look at this migration on a map, it's as if humans spread like a wave from Africa to all over the world. But this journey wasn't just a change of location. Nature also gradually changed the rules of the game. The farther from Africa, the farther humans moved from the equator, something important happened. The sun no longer shone the same way. The sky was cloudy more often, winters became longer, days became shorter, and the amount of UV radiation, or UV, dropped sharply. This is where something interesting happened. The very thing that had been saving people in Africa was slowly starting to cause them problems. When the hero of the story became a problem, remember we said melanin is like a natural sunscreen? Well, is sunscreen always a good thing? No. Imagine you're standing in the middle of northern Norway one winter day. The sky is cloudy, the sun can barely be seen through the clouds. Now, imagine you've also put a very strong sunscreen on your face. Almost no light reaches your skin anymore. Exactly the same thing happened to the humans who migrated to northern Europe with dark skin. Melanin was very good at blocking the sun's rays, but now the problem was that there was hardly any sun left to protect against. The vitamin that changed everything. Our body has a very important vitamin called vitamin D. What's interesting is that we don't get most of this vitamin from food. Our body makes it itself. But there's only one condition. Sunlight has to reach the skin. When UV rays hit the skin, the body performs a chemical reaction and starts producing vitamin D. This vitamin is very important for bones. If it's low, bones become weak. Muscles don't work properly. The immune system is also damaged. It even affects children's growth and mother's health. Now, put yourself in the place of an early human for a moment. You live in northern Europe. There's little sun and your skin is very dark. That means even the small amount of light has a hard time entering your skin. The result, your body doesn't make enough vitamin D. You gradually get sick, your bones become weak, and the chance that you'll survive to adulthood or have children decreases. This is where nature stepped in again. Natural selection, no plan, no program. There's a common misconception about evolution. Some people think nature one day decided to say, from today on, people in Europe should have light skin. But it's not like that at all. Evolution has no plan. Everything starts from small accidents. For example, imagine that in a tribe, a child is born completely by chance whose skin is just a tiny bit lighter than the rest, so little that maybe no one even notices. But that tiny difference allows a little more light to enter the skin. The body makes more vitamin D, the person gets sick less, stays healthier, has more children. Then those children inherit the same trait. Then the grandchildren, then the great-grandchildren. Then thousands of generations later, gradually the number of light-skinned people became greater and greater. Not because someone chose them, not because they were stronger, just because their body worked a little better in that environment. That's all. Nature is in no hurry. A very important point is that these changes did not happen quickly at all. Not in 100 years, not in 1,000 years, but over thousands of generations. For us, whose lives may last 80 or 90 years, imagining this amount of time is very difficult. But for nature, a few thousand years is just the blink of an eye. Nature is in no hurry. Slowly, generation after generation, it adopts the human body to its surrounding environment. But here, a strange question arises. If the lack of sunlight caused skin to become lighter, then why are Europeans and East Asians, even though they both have relatively light skin, not completely similar genetically? This is where the story becomes more amazing than ever. So far, we've learned that when humans left Africa, the lack of sunlight made lighter skin an advantage in some regions. But here, a strange question arises. Does that mean all light-skinned people came from one common light-skinned ancestor? You might think the answer is yes, but no. In fact, this is where one of the coolest secrets of evolution reveals itself. A puzzle for scientists. For years, scientists thought light skin appeared only once in human history. But when they examined the genes of people from different countries, they saw something strange. Europeans have light skin. Many people in East Asia also have relatively light skin. But the genes that cause the lightening of skin in these two groups are not the same. What does that mean? It means nature found two different solutions to the same shared problem. At first glance, the result may look similar, but when you look at the DNA, you see that the path to that result was completely different. Nature invented it twice. Imagine two people, one in Iran and one on the other side of the world, who, without knowing each other, decide to build a flying machine. In the end, both arrive at something that looks like an airplane. But the blueprint they used, the engine, the wings, and even the method of construction are different. Exactly the same thing happened in nature. Europeans reached light skin through one genetic pathway, East Asians through another, but both were solving the same shared problem: lack of sunlight. Scientists gave this phenomenon a beautiful name: convergent evolution. It means separate organisms or populations, without copying each other, arrive at roughly similar solutions because of similar environmental conditions. And this doesn't only happen in humans. It has been seen over and over again in nature. For example, the wings of birds and the wings of bats are both for flying, but they are not the same in structure. Or the bodies of sharks and dolphins look very similar, even though one is a fish and the other is a mammal. When nature faces a problem, it may reach a similar answer several times and in several different ways. And that is exactly what happened with human skin color. So what does race mean? Now we've reached one of the most important parts of the story. You may have heard some people say that humans are divided into completely separate races, but the modern science paints a very different picture. The reality is that more than 99.9% of the DNA of all humans is the same. That means genetically, you and I are far more similar than our appearance suggests. In fact, skin color is only the result of changes in a very small number of genes in the body. That's it. It doesn't determine the brain, it doesn't determine personality, it doesn't determine talent, it doesn't determine the value of a human being. It only shows under what kind of sky that person's ancestors lived for thousands of years. An interesting example. Imagine two cars that are exactly the same model. Every part of the engine, gearbox, brakes, and body is identical. Only one is painted white and the other black. Does the color of the car make its engine stronger? No. Color is just color. The story of human skin color is almost the same. The difference we see is only a small change on the outside of the body, while on the inside we are all built from almost the same genetic blueprint. And it gets even more interesting. There's an even stranger point. Sometimes two people who both have dark skin are genetically more different from each other than one of them is from a light-skinned person. Strange, right? It means what our eyes see is not always the best way to judge the differences between humans. The eye only sees skin color, but the genes tell a completely different story. Skin color, a historical map. If you want to look at it very simply, skin color is like a map that shows the past of a person's ancestors. Dark skin is the memory of thousands of years of life under the intense sun near the equator. Lighter skin is the memory of thousands of years of life in the less sunny parts of the world. Neither is better, neither is worse. Each was simply a solution for living in a different environment. In fact, nature never tried to create the best human. It only tried to create a human who had a better chance of surviving in that particular environment. But one last question still remains. If evolution caused all these changes, is this process still continuing, or has modern humans stopped evolving? The answer to this question may be the strangest of all. So far, we've learned that human skin color is the result of thousands of years of adaptation to sunlight. But an important question remains. Has evolution finished? Has our body reached the end of the line? Or is it still quietly changing right now without us noticing? The short answer is no. Evolution has never stopped. Evolution is still alive. There's a common misconception among many people. They think evolution is something that happened millions of years ago and is now over. But the reality is that as long as living beings reproduce, genes are passed from one generation to the next, and the environment affects people's chances of survival, evolution continues. Only one big difference has appeared. We no longer live like our ancestors. Humans changed the rules of the game. Our ancestors spent the entire day under the open sky, but what about us? We leave the house in the morning, get into a car, go to the office or school, spend the whole day under a roof, then go back home again. Many of us may spend only a few minutes under direct sunlight in an entire day. On the other hand, we use sunscreen, we wear covering clothes, we take vitamin D as a supplement, we eat foods that didn't even exist 1,000 years ago. We take medicine, we get vaccinated. Even if a baby is born with a genetic disease, modern medicine can often help that child live a healthy life and even have their own children. That means many of the pressures nature used to put on humans have decreased today. In fact, for the first time in history, humans themselves have begun to change the rules of natural selection. The world has become smaller than ever before. There's another interesting point. In the past, people usually married others who lived in the same region. But today, someone may be born in Africa, study in Europe, work in Asia, and marry someone from South America. The world has never been this connected. This has caused human genes to mix more than at any other time in history. That's why the boundaries some people draw between humans are becoming fainter every day. A different look in the mirror. The next time you stand in front of the mirror, don't just look at the color of your skin. Think about the fact that behind this color lies thousands of years of history. Every cell in your body carries the story of your ancestors' journey. Maybe one person's ancestors lived for thousands of years under the scorching sun of Africa. Another person's ancestors endured the long winters of Northern Europe. Someone else lived for generations in the mountains of Asia. Our appearances are different because the paths of our ancestors' journeys were different, but the destination of all those journeys was the same: survival. And perhaps the most important point of this entire video, skin color is not a boundary between humans. On the contrary, it is one of the clearest signs that we all come from a common root. If all our ancestors had been separate from the beginning, our bodies would never have needed to adapt to so many different environments. These differences came into existence precisely because one group of humans left Africa and lived in different environments. So every time you look at a person's skin color, you are actually seeing the result of one of the greatest journeys in the history of living beings. A journey whose effects still remain on all of our faces. So, if someone asks you why humans have different skin colors, the answer is not just one word. The answer is a story that began about 200,000 years ago under the hot African sun. Then it passed through deserts, forests, mountains, and frozen lands. It continued generation after generation, and finally it reached you and me. Our skin colors may be different, but we are all descendants of that same small group that one day decided to leave Africa and discover the world. And perhaps the most beautiful part of the whole story, that very thing some people today see as a difference between humans is actually one of the greatest signs of dissimilarity between all of us. If all our ancestors had been separate from the beginning, our bodies would never have needed to adapt to so many different environments. These differences came into existence precisely because one group of humans left Africa and lived in different environments. So every time you look at a person's skin color, you are actually seeing the result of one of the greatest journeys in the history of living beings. A journey whose effects still remain on all of our faces.